All right, we're back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. We are streaming live on Facebook at newschannel5.com, and also here on the Plus, you see the number on the screen. Professor Richard Tarpey is with us from over at MTSU. You know, whenever you talk about things like this, and we don't want this to get too political, but there are politics always involved. You know, you can see on Facebook there are people that are going to blame, you know, the current president, Joe Biden's not doing enough. There are issues there. A lot of people like to point to, well, why are we sending, you know, formula to the borders, you know, and, you know, all of this. Just want to be clear on this so that you understand what the issue is. You know, the amount of baby formula that is sent to the border has been going there for several years. It hasn't changed, and it's required under law to do so where there are refugees, one way or the other, coming over with children. They need that. That's what it is. It's not. You're not going to place that on Biden. You're not going to place that on Trump. It's something that was in the law, and that's the way it's been. But it becomes political, and you have people that don't know what they're talking about saying, well, was Biden sending it down there? It's been going on all along. Now, you may want to quibble some. Maybe President Biden should do a better job of lifting some of the restrictions on imports, which, by the way, were in place also under President Trump. And so, you know, it gets political, and if you just want to attack one or the other, that's fine, but that's way oversimplifying the issue. It's much more than that. But there can be details to a sitting president that you can say, can they do more?
Right. Always. Always. And I think a lot of this could bleed into a conversation on the industry itself. So we've allowed this industry to become very concentrated across two providers or two producers. That's the way it's been, right? We have other industries that way. We talked last time I was here about the meat industry, or maybe a couple times ago. Meat industry on beef is concentrated across only 4 producers. When that one of those producers, I forgot which one it was, had the ransomware attack, 20% of our beef supply was gone. Beef supply went up, everybody went nuts, they all complained, they said, what's going on? You know, when we have a highly concentrated market that relies on just a couple companies, if one of those companies has a problem, everybody's going to suffer. That's the way it's going to work in a concentrated industry.
Yeah, and we're seeing it firsthand right now. Let's take a call from James. James, good morning. Hi, James. Are you there?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. Go ahead. How are you, James?
I've got to agree, man. Can't blame presidents. This is a administrational thing that they've been doing for 20 years. And you can't blame Biden, though, on this either. He just got 39 tons of baby food, formula, and has purchased, I think, 8. I don't know for a fact because I couldn't get a straight answer, but 8 more shipments.
Well, that's right, and we saw some of them arriving. I mean, any sitting president right now who's going to be in that position is going to be doing what he's doing. And whether or not this is President Biden or his former President Trump or someone before that, the factors going on around the world right now were going to happen regardless. How much power do you believe any sitting president or government can have to address these issues?
Well, you know, I think that's a great topic. I think a lot of people overestimate what a president can do. A president in reality doesn't have that much power. So let's take Joe Biden in this case. He did invoke the Defense Act that allows him to use the Department of Defense commercial aircraft to bring product into the country, right? So that helps. He has released some restrictions on imports within his power so that we can get the product from the Netherlands into the United States easier without going through all the normal processes. But other than that, there's not much more he can do. He can't change the law that sends the formula down to the border. Congress has to do that, and a 50-50 Congress, it's not going to happen. Doesn't matter. Right. Nothing's happening right now in the Congress. So I think we tend to overestimate what a president can really do with the power that the president has. So really, it's the companies that have to increase production. It's the companies that have to bring more product in. And the supply chain issues have got to get resolved. We've got to hire truckers. We've got to get ships moving. The president can't do any of that.
Let's get to the truckers. We were talking a bit about that because that's the next stage. You know, if the ships are bringing it to shore, the trains, maybe they arrive. You know, everything in your home, everything that you're dealing with in your home right now, at one time or another, was on a truck. That's how it ended up eventually, wherever it was you ended up purchasing it. And the gasoline prices are where they're at right now. Trucking companies looking to hire, but the diesel costs. Meanwhile, how is it that we see these high gas prices right now, but we keep hearing how the oil companies are making record profits? Would you please explain that to me?
Yeah, that's an interesting.
It's kind of like that's what you're saying. They're raising the prices and they're making record profits. I thought they're supposed to be raising prices because everything's costing them more too.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody has a handle on that. Congress has done several hearings on oil prices. So oil prices are obviously up because Russia's been taken out of the market effectively. There's not much coming out of Russia, and Russia supplied quite a bit of fuel. People underestimate that. OPEC has not decided to help whatsoever. So Saudi Arabia and those countries have not come up to the table and say, okay, well, we'll pump more oil for you. So supplies are down. Every time supplies are down, prices go up. That's the way it works. So what's hard to understand is if oil prices are up, how are the companies making so much money? And I think that comes when you start looking at the oil getting refined into gas and then getting shipped to the gas stations. You know, it costs more money to ship it now. You got to get it on a truck. You got to get to a gas station. We're back to the trucks. So oil companies are still making a lot of money because the oil is just still so high coming out of the ground. They're able to sell it at a higher price. And what's been interesting in the United States is demand hasn't gone down. And that's been interesting across the board. So when you look at some of the trends that have come out over the spring, the expectation was as prices go up, demand should start going down. We have found that consumer demand continually has gone up this spring. Even though prices go up, people still out there buying stuff. I don't know what they're doing with it, but they keep buying.
They're buying and they're going places. They're doing things. Yeah, I think maybe one of the reasons for that is we're still emerging from the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And after being shut down for so long, had the pandemic never come along, well, a lot of things would be different, of course. But maybe people would say, well, I'm going to dial back. But now everyone's like, well, we're feeling healthy. Things aren't as bad out there. They're going anyway. And
still consuming, still traveling.
Which, you know, thank goodness. That's good on a lot of fronts, right? But that's meaning the demand is still up there. I mean, prices, let's see, what did you pay for a price of gallon of gas recently? I think mine was
$4.20 something.
$4.20 or something along those lines. Diesel is almost $2 more. Per gallon, and that hits the truck drivers. I was listening this morning on NPR coming in, and they were interviewing these truck drivers and how that directly translates down the road. Truck drivers are taking it on the chin because they've got, you know, I even think about if these gas prices keep going up, what about schools budgeting for school buses next year? Think about that. How do they set that aside when they realize all of a sudden gasoline maybe by this time next year, or not this time, by school year, could be over $5 a gallon? I mean, it just ultimately, though, with truck drivers, it's going to translate into the grocery stores where we go. We've already
noticed it. Everywhere. So if you think about it, and we didn't cover this a few minutes ago, but ships run on diesel. Right, trains run on diesel, trucks run on diesel, everything runs on diesel. Yeah, there's a few that have been converted to natural gas and this type of thing, but not near enough to make an impact. So once we got the ports unjammed, all that product came in, and it sat in Long Beach, sat in Oakland, because there were no trucks to pick it up. Right, so it's that final mile delivery to the grocery store or to the local retail store where we purchase our goods. It has to get there somehow. So as you said, the trucking companies had lost a lot of drivers. Now you can go out there, you can see ads for truck drivers for $110,000, $120,000 a year to be a truck driver.
Right.
Yeah, because they can't get truck drivers. We need truck drivers.
Which, not a bad gig.
Not a bad gig.
When I heard about everything being, just stalled out off the coast or in warehouses somewhere, I always go to, and I know it's probably a more minority portion of it, but what about perishables? And I don't know, or even baby formula. How long can that just sit there? And obviously it has to be maybe some of the items properly refrigerated. But what happened? Did a lot of cargo just get destroyed?
You know, I think it did. I'm
talking about maybe some fruits and vegetables that maybe sometimes are imported, things like that.
I haven't really looked at that, but that's interesting. It had to have if it was sitting on a ship for a month.
Right. There's just no way it's going to last, right?
Luckily, we don't import a lot in the United States. We don't import a lot of perishables from overseas. Right. So we import them more locally. You know, we get a lot of agricultural from Mexico, Puerto Rico. So we don't get a lot from overseas, but that's interesting. We do get food from overseas. I would imagine if it wasn't something frozen, something on ice, that it would have had to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. You just wonder how much was lost on that front. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what we see happening with the consumer right now as they observe this, and maybe how business will react to it. I mean, whether you're going more for generic, you and I were talking about the price of a bag of some of the name brand chips, I noticed yesterday is up about $1 a bag or something like, which, you know, whatever. I'm going generic. So, see, we're shifting some of our buying habits, at least in the short term. We'll be back with more. Your comments on Facebook as well as phone calls. If you have a question or comment, you see it on the number there on the screen. Back with more right after this.